My granddad used to be a bookie
Right.
for Ladbrokes. Ladbrokes bought a holiday park business in Caister. They needed somebody to run the park in Caister, and he took the job when he was offered, and then the whole family followed him down to Caister in 1972. Then my dad was a blanket boy, my mum was a chalet maid. My uncle Steve was a lighting engineer. He used to do the lights in the old ballrooms.
Oh, wow.
And then over time, everybody sort of started rolling into higher and different positions. And my dad ended up being an operations director for Haven. And I'd actually gone off and worked in nightclubs in the West End for a while, and then came back into the space in '92, and I never looked for another job again. It's just a brilliant, brilliant sector.
That's incredible. So actually, my first question is, why did you found Away Resorts? And I think it might be in your blood.
Well, there is a bit of it in my blood. I founded Away Resorts actually because I thought the whole sector was becoming really transactional. It was everyone was talking about selling more holidays, selling more holiday homes, and I think we were increasingly just starting to forget the purpose and the point, which is great experiences for families to come away en masse and have a getaway with their family. And some of our old family friends were holiday makers from the 70s, right? And we've still remained friends with them. And those people were just being forgotten, the lovely community and the energy behind it. And then also separately, having been a bingo caller and done almost everything on the way up, I feel that park operators are utterly amazing human beings. If you have a problem, throw it at a holiday park operator and the solution will come back.
Amazing.
They're just brilliant. And I felt that bigger businesses were just central offices that empowered people to do as they were told, not actually empower people to drive a business forward and look after customers.
Actually be responsive to the situation.
And so I broke out of it because I just kind of got a bit tired of the soulless approach to what I think is a great bastion of Britishness, right? It just is part of the British brand to talk about caravans and have those sort of breaks. And we were not looking after it. And then ultimately, the evidence exists that says that our sector could disintegrate, which is, I remember coastal hotels when I was a kid, the grand hotels and all those big coaching hotels that you'd see on seafronts. They're gone. And they became irrelevant really quickly. And when you look into why, it's generations just decided it wasn't of interest to them. And millennials, which is the most traveled, access to more data of any preceding generation, have become the economic engine room for our estate. And they're brand agnostic and they're fickle and they want things a certain way. And I think we were just stuck in a paradigm of beige caravans and okay entertainment and okay experiences. And I wanted high street plus one, really loving the space and then empowering people to look after it. And that was the sort of genesis of why I wanted to come up and say Away Resorts. And it was actually get away from what used to happen.
So is that why it's called Away Resorts?
Yeah, you live in three places, right?
Yeah.
You live at home, at work, or that place you really, really want to be, somewhere away from all of that. And so it kind of comes from there, and this desire to get away from the kind of the paradigms of what parks used to be.
Wow.
Sounds like thought out, doesn't it?
It sounds really thought out. I love that. So, and how long has Away Resorts existed?
So we left gainful employment in October of 2007, and we bought our first park, which was Whitecliff Bay on the Isle of Wight, on February the 28th, 2008. And so it's been around circa 16 years.
16 years.
And we've grown through credit crunch and pandemics and a cost of living crisis. And we've had some really amazing boom time experiences as well. So it's been...
And you really have grown. How many parks do you have now?
So we're 27 trading locations. We've got 25 parks, a couple of hotels and other things bolted around it as well. So it's grown quite extensively, and it's national, it's UK national, Scotland, Wales, England.
That's extraordinary. I actually had no idea that Away Resorts was so big.
No. Well, you wake up one day and then you go, I worry. I go to bed at night and I worry about people, and I get up in the morning and I worry about people. They're always on my mind, and when you've got 2,500 of them, and I'm really thoughtful about how are they thinking about work? Are we doing the right things by them so they can enjoy their life and enjoy work? Suddenly you wake up and you go, it's moved from 35 people having a good time to this 2,500. It matters.
So that's 2,500 employees. That's phenomenal. And if you've got 2,500 employees, do you know a rough number of visitors that you're getting?
So each year we can get, it's circling anywhere between 750,000 and 1 million people flow through our parks. And at any one night, any time of the year, we can be hosting 18 to 20,000 people across that estate in beds.
That is phenomenal.
Well, and we run, our people run small towns and small villages.
Oh, absolutely.
So you've got to worry about brilliant entertainment and having a good time, and then the sewer pipe that doesn't work properly, or you've got a gas infrastructure and you've got energy stuff, and then you've got you put people into those environments, so then you get domestic. So so there's bits behind the scenes, there's bits front of house, and then there's bits we all the way through all of that spectrum that we're managing. So 18,000 people, 750,000 a year, 2,500 folk looking after that. And I think they're special.
Absolutely.
Day.
And you worry about them.
I worry in a positive way. I want people. So I've got two really simple legacy clauses. I want our customers to say that Carl Bloke and Away Resorts are okay to do business with. And I'm glad I entrusted our money with them.
Yeah.
And I want my colleagues. So I don't think of them as employees or staff. I think that we're all colleagues, and we might have titles that are different, but our hierarchy remains constant. So sometimes the most important person in our business is collecting glass and cleaning it properly to make sure it's presented beautifully.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm concerned to make sure that their experience is good. So when they walk away, Away Resorts was a good place to actually work, and I'm glad I did. And that having our logo on their CV unlocks a bigger future for them.
That's incredible. So it actually literally starts from the ground.
So totally, yeah. I mean,
and you're concerned about someone's career trajectory, and as Away Resorts can present such a fundamental part of that movement in their career.
Well, yeah. I mean, so if you sit in a room with 100 colleagues and say to them, "Can you put your hands in the air if you really want to have a mediocre life and be remembered for very, very little?"
Yeah.
No one puts that hand in the air. Right? Everybody wants to do more. All we've got to do is just give them an environment where they can.
Yeah.
Just unlock that moment for them. And sometimes it's actually just saying that. Sometimes it is as simple as going, don't look back, rocking on your rocking chair as an 80-year-old and just wish you'd tried that touch harder. In a year's time, you're going to be wishing you did something about it today. So let's do something 100%. Now. So I'm concerned about just fulfilling potential. And it comes then into things like social mobility bothers me. People that don't always get the same chances, but you can put in the same effort. And it's just, for me, it's just about providing those opportunities, really.
Well, now I know why this strategy is called Embracing Everyone, because you really do. Like, obviously, the people that work here are a fundamental part of the experience.
And that is at every level.
Yeah.
That's creed, colour, religion, sexual preference. Everything, for me, is... I actually don't see it anymore. And there's been lots of little things in my life that, I didn't wake up one day and suddenly not see that stuff anymore. But there's been lots of little learnings. I remember I listened to a podcast once by Lewis Hamilton, actually. Right? You don't have to love Lewis as an individual, but what he says at times is interesting. And this was actually relatively recently, but he said, you may not think you're racist, but I guarantee as a white person, you probably haven't suffered racism, but every black child has. And then I started realizing things like, I'm just part of a passive group of people that say they're not racist, but do nothing to deactivate racism in any way, right? And then you can go, well, that's true of gay people. That's true of ginger people in some instances that can get discriminated against just by having different color hair. Yeah. And when you open your mind up to that, then you suddenly go, wow, there's a whole there's a whole genre of people that probably need to be putting more effort in and being more supportive. And so, yeah, they're the drivers of it.
So bearing that in mind, when you started Away Resorts, how important was it that it was I know the answer, I can tell the answer, but
A place for everybody.
yeah, literally, how important was diversity, equality, and inclusion when you were actually founding it?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's two really big drivers that. So first of all, like critical, and people matter.
Yeah.
And our people make a difference. And there's a commercial truth to that. Engaged, happier people will just will allow your business to perform better. As a child, I was a very curious child, very interested in lots and lots and lots of different things. And so my school life was probably littered with reports that said, easily distracted, disruptive in class, could do better, right? But if you look at our scholastic system, it's built for the Industrial Revolution, right? It's built to get people trained to be able to deal with instruction, do as they're told. And so, and my mind was not built for that. But I felt vilified because I was different, or I had a different approach to the way I wanted to learn or discover. And then on my 1 week after my 18th birthday, I started working in a nightclub in the West End of London called the Empire in Leicester Square. And I stayed in a staff house. And in that staff house, there were 4 bedrooms and 3 other people that lived in it. And I arrived, and in there was Gladys, Vera, and Mike, that were all men.
Okay.
And I came from like this little village in Norfolk, and arrived at this place where a big strapping guy is referring to himself as Gladys. So I had this kind of shock of, oh, we don't have your type in mind, Gladys, right? And then I know that was through the AIDS pandemic and all those sort of things that were going on. And then I witnessed some of the destructive behaviour towards people like Gladys and Vera and Mike, lighting engineer and 2 sound engineers. And just remember feeling like, these guys are really brilliant people. They helped me grow as an 18-year-old. I didn't know how to wash my clothes properly, right? So they showed me how to work washing machines in a really caring and loving way, and then just watch them go to work and get abuse and stuff. And so, yeah, those guys made it really important to me to make sure that any environment I developed never had that kind of stuff occurring in it. And so I have 0 tolerance to that.
And that's been it from day dot.
Literally day one.
And
like an example in real time here, I walked down from our office one day, and we had some of our colleagues were sat in a chair and they were praying there, right? So they're Muslims, and they're praying in a car. And I sort of said to them, wait, why are you praying in the car? And they went, well, there's nowhere to pray and I can't get to the mosque in time. So we had a prayer room built in the actual office, because it felt like we just weren't providing a decent environment for people to do that, right? So little things like that, it just has flowed through, and it comes from sort of 2 or 3 of those critical moments of it's okay to be different. It's not okay to vilify people that want to be different. But also it is important to provide spaces that allow people to embrace their beliefs, religions, or their desires in life.
Absolutely. And what's striking me is that you've been very open-eyed to these things, like seeing your colleagues in the car, meeting Gladys and Vera. How do you ensure that the rest of your company is also aware of and keeping an eye open for these things and making sure that you maintain an inclusive workspace?
Yeah, because actually one of the challenges is when you've got your eyes open, you often as people, we live life through the lens of our own existence.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I often make the assumption that everybody thinks like I do, and it's not a truth.
Yeah.
So we have 3 core values. In fact, they sit up there, right? Yeah. And part of that, it says the lovers. And so prima facie, as you arrive in our business, you will learn to understand what the values of our organization are. And during an interview process, we will be talking to you about our values. And being a lover means we embrace everybody. But love is a strong word, and it's meant to be. It doesn't say like is a value, it says love is a value. And so we start at the most basic level of these are our core values, and they're kind of non-negotiable. And I'm happy to call them out, to actually say to someone, just walk me through what part of that was loving or attentive or amazing, attentive to your colleague, right? What part of that? So there's a device there for us to be able to have a uniform language, a unified language about it, but also a set of values that give us the freedom to be able to ask and help people to explain their behavior in certain ways. So we do quite a lot of that. There are then the more technical elements that we'll look at, which is kind of gender pay gaps and diversity and all those other components, the way we exist. But they're kind of like, they're almost like hygiene factors. They're legally required, and so every organisation has to do it. And then there's the other elements that we'll do, which is then to support people that are developing their skills in a workplace environment. So, for instance, take women in the workplace. I have a sort of a working thesis that, I don't have a lot of empirical evidence for this, but I have a working thesis that many successful female executives are actually suffering with some form of dissonance because they actually generally start to behave more like men to get on in a often male-dominated environment. And how do we think about providing spaces that you can actually be an executive or be a senior leader or at any level, but it's okay to be a woman there as well as it's okay to be a man there. And so we will help people develop those skills by things like Whittle for women in hospitality, and then there's the more softer components then about we operate a system called Our Voice, which is people at groups, cohorts within our business can sit and talk to senior leaders and executives about what they're dealing with, what support they need from us, and those are the moments then we can discover in real time what's going on. And then we have very regular pulse surveys with our team, and within there's lots of questions about how they're feeling.
Pulse survey. So
it's just to get literally a sense of the pulse of the organisation.
Oh, wow, okay.
So it's a short survey, but it gives then everybody the freedom to provide anonymised commentary about their experiences, what they're doing, and then from that we can then define some tactical interventions to start making changes that keeps these sentiments alive. And it becomes increasingly difficult the bigger you get.
So that was a phenomenal answer, and what I'm really taking away from it is actually maintaining a balanced, inclusive workspace is really hard work because you've got a lot of infrastructures you're putting in place. Does it feel like hard work?
It feels like people are growing, right? So I'm 54, right? And sometimes my granddad used to have a lovely phrase: if you want to walk in another person's shoes, you need to take your own shoes off, right? Yeah. And so sometimes the bit is for me not to treat everybody like a 54-year-old that's had a lot of experience in their life and going, why did you make that choice? Yeah. Sometimes it's actually just stepping back a bit and going, well, they're 22, 23. They've not necessarily had all of the life experience that I've had, and so judge them as a 22, 23-year-old. So the hard bit sometimes is not trying to keep on top of it all. It's actually to take the lenses off that you look through and try and see it in a different context. Actually.
Yeah. Okay. Trying to like reconfigure what someone's perspective is.
But I get a lot of energy from, like, loads of energy from seeing people flourish and evolve and grow, and so it doesn't feel like hard work. Sometimes the repetitive nature of things can get a bit tedious, but actually no, it's lovely when you see. I mean, one of our new GMs, general managers of our parks, we bought a park as our third park, and it was about 14 years ago. And this amazing lady, you could see so much talent masked by a need to go and have a good party.
Okay.
Right? And it would have been really easy to say, turning up late, not coming into work that's grounds for you to move on. We're fed up with that. And your life lesson is go and look for another job and reflect on that. Or it's to say, you've got an amazing amount of talent, but we got to tone down certain bits in the workplace. And 14 years later, he's a general manager of one of my favourite little assets. And you kind of go, that's what I love. That bit makes it easy work.
Absolutely. And it's all about the nurturing aspect of it
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well. It's
You do feel quite patriarchal, I think. I don't come to work and go, I'm a director of a business, whatever. For me, it feels. I always wanted it to feel like it's a space where we're all in it together.
yeah.
And it does have a patriarchal feel to it. And then occasionally the buck stops with you, and
Yeah.
that's why you get pay differential.
Well, I mean, also, you must feel quite patriarchal because you go to bed worrying about 2,500 people.
Yeah, it's like a big family, isn't
Yeah,
it? Yeah,
you've
yeah,
right,
yeah.
probably got
I
people
promise I
running
wasn't
away.
that promiscuous in real life.
I didn't say you went to bed to 2,500 people.
No, so I mean, yeah, it does. It definitely does feel like that. And we, you know, in the pandemic, was a great example of how our executive at times can come together in a particular way. So we knew there were here's simple things like it's really easy to say you can homeschool your children and you can use a laptop.
Yeah.
How many houses with 4 kids in do you know that have got 4 functioning laptops
Absolutely.
where they can educate? So the executive here, we gave up to 50% of our salary for 3 months and loaded it into a fund called Hug a Hero because our colleagues are known as holiday heroes.
Yeah.
And they, to this day, they can now call on that fund and say, I'm under desperate pressure. I need some help. And then we will then fund things like laptops for education. We had issues where families were, their washing machine, which is like a fundamental basic of hygienic living, right, had broken and no means to actually, financial means to replace it. So they could call on that fund and we could help in different ways out with the workplace. So yeah, I think that it feels quite patriarchal in that regard.
Yeah, that's incredible. And that fund is open to anyone who needs to use it.
If you've got away resource on your payslip,
Yeah.
it's available to you in some way. If we can support,
which is like a fundamental inclusive act, because I guess there's no
it doesn't. There's no care about hierarchy in the organisation because everybody's got different means and different stresses at times. So yeah, there's that's open to everybody to have access to, and it's actually, I thought it would be quite a philanthropic, joyous thing to give. Actually, it's really emotional and deeply moving particularly when you see the reasons why people need the support. And actually, most people are really, really proud and don't want to put their hand out.
Of course.
Right? And so someone's got to have been brave enough to go, I need your help now. And then you read the rationale behind it and you go, oh my God, we need to be doing more to help.
Yeah, that's fascinating. We're almost done.
Okay.
I've got 2 more questions I'd like to ask you. One of them is, over the last 16 years, in terms of the diversity especially and the inclusion, how has that changed?
Well, the manifestation of it for me is, in part, this office, I think, provides a sense of how has that changed. And somebody came into the office the other day, and our office is, it's quite flamboyant, and it's gregarious, and there's an energy to it. And they said, "What's the effect of it? Wow, your office is very colourful." And I went, "Well, what do you mean by that?" And they went, it feels quite gay. You know, you can feel that sort of sexual orientation in the office, right?" And I said, "Do you mean the decor or the people?" And they went, "Well, both." And I went, "Well, that's good then, isn't it?" That for me is the manifestation of a group of people that found a place to exist and also felt really capable of being who they are in the workplace. But it transcends sexual orientation as well, because I have a mantra that you can bring your personality to work. And it also means that people are able to be who they want to be here. So that's, for me, a really powerful manifestation of it. And also the fact that we don't keep talking about DE&I. It means that we're actually seeing it happen more often. So we have to talk about it less and less.
And also, I think there's an element of companies can talk about it as much as they want, but usually the talk means that nothing's actually getting done. Whereas if you're not talking about it, it's happening.
Absolutely, But so that's definitely been a manifestation for me. And then and I'm learning every day, right? So we had a Christmas party a couple of years ago, actually, and I found out what pansexual meant. And I found out, because there are people in the business, and the nice thing for me was they described themselves as pansexual, and I was able to say, could you just explain to me what that means and how I might want to think about that? And so those sorts of conversations are taking place at quite differential levels.
Yeah.
So I think it's just really cool. That's a person that came in here and felt it was very easy to say, that's who I am and that's what I stand for.
That's incredible, especially if you're saying that to like one of the big bosses. That's huge. That's absolutely to your credit. And my final question is, what's your future goals in terms of the embracing everyone, the DEI of it all?
So I've been really lucky, and I'm blessed to be able to go to. I can afford certain things in my life, and I go to a conference in the US every year, and it's a brilliant conference. It's about abundance. It's about being able to. The technology and disruption of technology isn't a negative; it's a positive, and it can bring great things. And when you go to that conference, you have to have what's called an MTP, a massively transformative purpose, right?
Wow.
Which is, what is it that you're going to do to change the planet? So, for example, one of the people that are there is, he invented the taser.
Okay.
Right? And the reason he invented a taser is because 4 mates went out one night for a drink and only 3 came back alive. Okay. And one of them got shot and killed. It was by a uniformed police officer. And it was what he determined to do, his massively transformative purpose was to provide non-lethal means to control environments. And that's where the taser came from. So one of my MTPs is, for example, to try and move people out of homelessness, because in a world with such riches and such success and access to technology the way we have, it is an anathema to me how some people choose to be homeless, and I've met those people. When I worked at the Empire, we had a lovely homeless woman that lived in our foyer, but chose to.
Yeah.
And then some people aren't, and they can't get out of that trap. So one of the ways I think about the future is learning, understanding what the problems are, and then trying to develop a massively transformative purpose that helps more people move and fulfill their lives in a way that's enriching to them, and they can. And I don't think that's not about applause. That just feels quite a human thing to do. So be human, but on a bigger scale.
I don't think you can say much better than that, can you? I think we should leave it there. That was amazing.
Good.